Today we will be discussing about plant. In the course of the lesson, we'll be looking at the meaning of plant, parts of a plant, pollination, and seed dispersal. What is a plant? I do know this is something you are familiar with. Hope you have not forgotten what a plant is. Quickly, let me tell you what a plant is. A plant is a living thing that grows in the earth. Plants are living things because they grow, feed, move, and reproduce. Now let's look at the part of a plant. A plant has the leaf, the fruit, the stem, the flower, and the root. Firstly, we're going to discuss about the root. Now take a very close look at the image that you're seeing. You see that what the root does is that it helps to hold the plant in the soil, and also it helps the plant to absorb water and minerals from the soil. Now imagine there was no root. How would the plant stay? The plant would have nothing to hold it to the soil. So you see that the root of every plant is very important. Next is the stem. The stem provides support for a plant. Also, it carries water and nutrients to the rest part of the plant. Also, we are going to look at the leaves. The leaves are where food is made. They use light to make food. Plants make their own food by using light energy from the sun through a process called photosynthesis. Plants use a green substance in their leaves called chlorophyll to make their food. Flowers. Flowers help plants to reproduce because they make seeds. The male part of a flower is called stamen, while the female part is called carpel or pistil. Flowers have different parts, which are the anther and filament, the stigma, the style, the ovary, the petal, and the sepal. Now, I told you earlier that the male part is called the stamen. The stamen actually has two parts, which are the anther and the filament, while the female part, which is the pistil, has three parts, which are the stigma, the style, and the ovary. Now you may be wondering how flowers help plants to reproduce, or you may just want to ask. But anyways, I am just going to explain it to you now. Pollination has to take place for plants to produce fruit and seeds. But what is pollination? Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower. Now let's see what happens in the pollination process. During pollination, the flower petals' bright colors and fragrant scent attract an insect. The insect arrives on the flower to collect nectar. Nectar is a sweet liquid which makes perfect insect food. As the insect is gathering the nectar, it rubs against the anthers, which rub pollen onto the insect. When the insect gets hungry again, it gets attracted to another flower's bright colors and fragrant scent. As the insect feeds on the nectar in this new flower, the pollen stalk to the insect from the first flower rubs off onto the female part of the second flower, which is the stigma. Part of this pollen travels down the style and then into the ovary. The tiny piece of pollen joins onto an ovule in the ovary. Then the plant is fertilized. The ovary of the flower turns into seed, which will then be dispersed so that new plants will be able to grow somewhere else. Actually, we have two types of pollination, which are self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination is the transfer of pollen grain from the anther of a flower to the stigma of that same flower. Note, of that same flower. While cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen grain from the anther of a flower to the stigma of another flower. There are different agents of pollination, that is, things that carry out pollination. We have animals, we have wind, water, insects such as bees, butterflies, flies, etc. All these are agents of pollination. I hope you now understand what pollination is all about. Now I'm going to explain to you what seed dispersal means. Dispersal actually means movement or to spread. So seed dispersal is the movement or transport of seeds away from the parent plant. Seeds can be dispersed by animals, wind, water, and explosion. That is animal dispersal, wind dispersal, water dispersal, and dispersal by explosive mechanism. Now let's go through the summary of today's lesson. I hope you have learned a lot about plants today. Please feel free to ask any question if there is a problem area for you, using the notes and questions section below. See you in our next class.